How does one of the most powerful men in music, the mastermind behind chart-topping legends, go from million-dollar parties and private jets to accusations of exploitation, network, coercion, and even witness intimidation? For decades, Sean Diddy Combs was untouchable. He reinvented hip-hop, broke artists into superstardom, and built a brand around power, wealth, and control. But according to federal prosecutors, that control didn't end in the studio. Behind the velvet ropes and red carpets, Diddy is now accused of leading a secretive, sexually exploitative underworld, one involving hired escorts, encrypted messages, violent rituals, and a tight circle of loyal staffers who allegedly did whatever it took to protect the empire, no matter the cost. The accusations are graphic, the evidence disturbing, and the consequences could mean life behind bars. This isn't just the fall of a rap mogul. This is a criminal empire unraveling in real time. But what exactly was going on behind the closed doors of his so-called freak-offs? And how far did Diddy and those around him really go to keep the truth buried? Let's break it down. The rise before the fall. Before the headlines, the lawsuits, and the federal indictments, Sean Diddy Combs was hip-hop royalty. He didn't just build a music label, he built the culture. From launching the career of the notorious B.I.G. to turning artists like Mary J. Blige into icons, Diddy's influence shaped the golden era of hip-hop and redefined what it meant to be a mogul. His label, Bad Boy Records, was more than a powerhouse. It was a brand of power, flash, and untouchable confidence. Every move he made turned into legend. Champagne-soaked parties, VIP yachts, a billion-dollar business empire built off music, fashion, and tequila. Behind the flashy lifestyle was a narrative of success, rising from Harlem roots to become a global symbol of Black excellence and entrepreneurial grit. But as his spotlight grew, so did the whispers. There were stories, ones most people brushed off. Rumors of control, fear, and quiet settlements. The media focused on the glamour, the accolades, the fame, until the whispers got too loud to ignore. Because according to federal prosecutors, the man who sold the world a dream of power and prestige was allegedly using that same power to run something far more sinister behind the scenes. The luxury wasn't just real estate and records, it may have been a front for an underworld of coercion, violence, and silence. And when the feds finally moved in, they weren't just after a music executive. They were after a man they now claim ran a coordinated underground operation that spanned the country. The feds step in, the start of the crackdown. For years, Diddy moved like a man above the law. Surrounded by bodyguards, private jets, and layers of loyalty, nothing seemed to touch him. Whispers came and went, but there were never consequences. That changed in the fall of 2024. In a move that sent shockwaves through the industry, federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security raided multiple properties tied to Diddy, including his mansions in Los Angeles and Miami. It wasn't just for show. They were searching for digital evidence, paper trails, and physical proof tied to an explosive list of charges: sex trafficking, racketeering, coercion, threats, and even kidnapping. This was no ordinary investigation. This was a full-scale federal takedown. What triggered it? According to reports, it was a growing pile of lawsuits involving both women and men, accusing Combs of manipulation, abuse, and psychological torment that allegedly spanned decades. But one civil claim in particular grabbed the feds' attention: a bombshell lawsuit filed by singer Cassie Ventura, his longtime partner, accusing him of years of violent and degrading behavior. As more alleged victims came forward, the feds couldn't ignore the pattern. But their case wasn't built overnight. They reportedly spent months tracking flight records, tracing money transfers, gathering hotel surveillance, and seizing hard drives. And when the time came to make their move, they hit all at once with force. Combs was arrested in September 2024 and denied bail after multiple judges ruled he was a flight risk. Since then, he's been held at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, cut off from his empire. No house arrest, no private estate, no more control. Behind bars, the man once responsible for building music's biggest stars has watched his own legacy unravel. But the real damage wouldn't come from the arrest. It would come from the witnesses. Witnesses, whistleblowers, and those who knew too much. Once the courtroom doors opened, the story started pouring out. Over 7 weeks, federal prosecutors called 34 witnesses to the stand, each one peeling back another layer of a world most people couldn't have imagined. These weren't just nameless sources or distant acquaintances. They were his ex-girlfriends, his assistants, his staff, people who were with him every day, and now say they were watching or living a nightmare. At the heart of it all were two women, Cassandra Cassie Ventura and a still anonymous accuser known only as Jane. Their testimonies were gutting. Both described being pressured, sometimes forced, into surreal, abusive sex acts arranged by Combs and carried out in high-end hotel rooms booked under fake names. He allegedly called them freak-offs, hotel nights, or wild king nights, bizarre, ritualistic sessions where escorts were flown in, drugs were supplied, and everything was watched, recorded, and controlled. The claims weren't just about what happened behind closed doors. According to the women, it was all organized with precision. Diddy's team allegedly handled cash drops, schedule planning, and even the lighting and supplies, from extra linens to drugs and lubricants in bulk, as one law enforcement witness put it. But it went far beyond sex. Both women testified they were subjected to beatings, psychological manipulation, and blackmail. In one moment that shocked the courtroom, Ventura claimed Diddy had a disturbing fetish, forcing her to be urinated on by other men as he watched. Another revealed that after being assaulted, they were still expected to perform for Diddy's enjoyment under threat of financial ruin or public humiliation. The evidence backed up their words. Texts read aloud in court showed them begging to stop, pleading not to be sent into another night of performing for his pleasure. They say he ignored them entirely or threatened to release the videos if they refused. But the scariest part? According to prosecutors, he didn't work alone. Kid Cudi, threats, and fire. Just when jurors thought they'd heard the worst, a new name dropped into the courtroom, one no one expected. Kid Cudi. That's when the case took a violent and personal turn. According to former assistant Capricorn Clark, things escalated in 2011 when Diddy found out Cassie, his longtime partner, had been romantically involved with the day and night rapper. And what happened next sounds like something out of a scripted crime show. Prosecutors claim Diddy lost control. Clark testified that he stormed into her home in the middle of the night, with a gun in hand, demanding answers. But that was just the beginning. According to her testimony, Combs and a security guard broke into Kid Cudi's home shortly after the confrontation. The goal? Allegedly to track him down, and possibly worse. Weeks later, just when you thought the situation couldn't escalate further, Cudi's Porsche was torched in what prosecutors believe was a targeted warning. The weapon allegedly used? A Molotov cocktail. And here's the twist, not one brought in by prosecutors looking for headlines. Kid Cudi himself took the stand. Under oath, he confirmed the entire sequence. The intimidation, the break-in, the car going up in flames. That kind of corroboration is rare in cases like this. And it sent a very loud, very clear message to the jury. This case wasn't built on rumors. It had receipts. But the violence didn't stop with celebrities. Because according to several accusers, Diddy's entire circle, from assistants to bodyguards, operated more like an intelligence unit than a music entourage. And the things they allegedly did to protect his image are nothing short of chilling. A dark web of control. It wasn't just the disturbing acts that shocked prosecutors, it was how organized everything was. According to courtroom testimony, Diddy didn't just act alone. Behind the scenes, he was allegedly backed by a network of loyal staffers, assistants, enforcers, and executives who helped execute and cover up nearly every aspect of his hidden lifestyle. Former employees testified under oath that bodyguards, personal assistants, and Bad Boy Records higher-ups did far more than keep Diddy's business running. They reportedly helped silence victims, clean up crime scenes, and even intimidate witnesses into disappearing. One story stood out. Diddy's former assistant, known in court as Mia, claimed he sexually assaulted and raped her, and that after the attack, she was told to keep quiet or deal with the consequences. Another assistant described being locked in an abandoned Times Square building, strapped to a lie detector machine, and interrogated for days when Diddy thought someone from his team had stolen his jewelry. What crime did she commit? Allegedly, none. And yet she was still held captive. But the most terrifying aspect? According to prosecutors, the people around Diddy didn't just look the other way, they cooperated. Fake names and identities were allegedly created to book flights, hotels, and escort services. Cash payoffs and secret NDAs were used to keep employees silent. And anyone who pushed back was either paid off, fired, or, worse, threatened into silence. In the courtroom, federal agents showed encrypted text messages from Diddy, instructing staff to organize what he called sessions in different cities across the country. These weren't one-offs. They were recurring, precise, and premeditated. Everything down to the lighting, the drugs, and the people involved was allegedly chosen to his exact specifications. One former driver claimed he was told never to speak about the packages he dropped off at hotel rooms. Another testified that he once walked in on a scene so disturbing, he quit the next day, only to receive multiple phone calls warning him to forget what he saw. Together, the testimonies built a single, unshakable image. This wasn't just bad behavior. It was a system, a self-contained, secretive world where silence was enforced, loyalty was bought, and the consequences of speaking out could change your life or end it. But for investigators, it wasn't just these stories that tied everything together. It was what they found in Diddy's devices, his cloud accounts, and the encrypted messages he thought were locked away forever. The electronic evidence that changed everything. It's one thing to hear disturbing allegations. It's another thing entirely when the digital evidence backs it all up. The final blow in the case against Sean Diddy Combs didn't come from a celebrity testimony or a news headline. It came from a federal agent holding a hard drive. That's how prosecutors closed their case, with an agent from the Department of Homeland Security taking the stand to verify electronic evidence pulled directly from Diddy's phones, tablets, and cloud storage. This wasn't guesswork or speculation. These were timestamped texts, emails, encrypted messages, and video files obtained directly from federal raids. And what they contained painted a picture even darker than the courtroom testimonies. Agents reportedly uncovered hundreds of messages between Combs and his top staff, allegedly arranging everything from escort pickups to drug delivery and security details for what the text referred to as sessions, freak nights, or late-night activity. In some conversations, specific orders were given, flights booked under aliases, hotels chosen for maximum privacy, exact quantities of cash to be delivered. Then came the media drives. Hidden among terabytes of data, investigators say they found explicit footage from these orchestrated hotel events, some of which was apparently used as blackmail against victims who tried to leave or speak out. While these videos were not shown to the public due to their graphic nature, the jury was told that the content directly supported claims of coercion and degradation. And it didn't end with sex. Agents also described finding files showing weapons and ammunition, including defaced semi-automatic firearms stored in Diddy's private residences. In photos displayed in court, authorities revealed caches of lubricants, narcotics, and surveillance equipment, tools that seemed less like party accessories and more like tools for control. There were also conversations that seemed to hint at payoffs, bribery, and instructions to destroy or hide evidence. In one alleged exchange, Diddy appeared to urge a staffer to clean up everything ahead of an unexpected guest arriving, a chilling phrase prosecutors argued was routine damage control. And with that, the story prosecutors had weaved over the course of nearly 2 months was no longer just a disturbing narrative. It became a timeline. Each claim, each accusation, suddenly had digital fingerprints. Precise, damning, hard to dispute. By the time the evidence was fully presented, Diddy's legal team didn't even try to mount a defense. No witnesses, no testimony, and most shocking of all, not a single word from Diddy himself. Combs stays silent, no defense witnesses. After weeks of damning testimony and digital exposure, many expected Sean Diddy Combs to finally speak up. Instead, he stayed completely silent. His defense team had previously told the judge they planned to call at least 3 witnesses in his favor. There were rumors of character references, expert testimony, maybe even an appearance by Diddy himself to challenge the government's narrative. But when the time came, those promises vanished. Without offering a single witness or putting Combs on the stand, the defense rested abruptly. No crossfire, no final story, no alternative explanation. The message? Either they believed the government's case hadn't proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, or they knew testifying might do more harm than good. Because putting Diddy on the stand would have opened him up to cross-examination on everything, the freak-offs, the leaked texts, the destroyed footage, and the alleged threats against his own inner circle. Any misstep, hesitation, or emotional crack could have cost him everything. So instead, they played a risky game. Stay quiet. Hope the jury sees the weak points. Push for reasonable doubt. But here's the catch. Silence can be just as loud as any testimony. To the public, it looked less like legal strategy and more like someone with something to hide. Because while Diddy sat still in that courtroom, dozens of witnesses had already spoken, some shaking, some crying, some reliving trauma so dark it left the room in stunned silence. And according to prosecutors, those testimonies were more consistent and connected than even they had expected. By the end of it, the courtroom tension had flipped. What started as bravado and power had drained into something colder, the quiet before a potentially history-making verdict. And now, with both sides done, all that's left is the jury. What's next? The jury, the verdict, and the legacy. Now, the fate of Sean Diddy Combs sits in the hands of 12 strangers, 8 men, 4 women, in one monumental decision. After a 7-week trial filled with disturbing detail, celebrity testimony, federal agents, and digital evidence, the jury has heard it all. And in just days, possibly even hours, they're expected to deliver a verdict that could change hip-hop history forever. If convicted, Combs isn't just facing scandal. He's facing the rest of his life behind bars. But the shockwaves from this case go far beyond the outcome of a single trial. Because whether or not Diddy is found guilty, this moment will forever change how we view power in the entertainment world. For decades, Diddy was the gatekeeper, the brand builder, the hitmaker. He seemed untouchable, immune to consequences, protected by his empire of influence. Now, that empire is crumbling in real time. He's no longer the man on stage accepting awards or making plays behind the scenes. He's a defendant, locked away in a federal detention center, surrounded not by platinum plaques, but by stained concrete and razor wire. And as the lawsuits pile up, with dozens of other accusers coming forward, it's clear this trial is just the beginning. There may be more charges, more stories, and more names dragged into the spotlight, names tied to the same industry that once praised him. The silence around Combs for all these years wasn't random. It was maintained, allegedly, through blackmail, fear, and money. But that silence is now breaking. Loudly, publicly, and maybe most importantly, legally. Whatever the verdict, this trial has pulled back the curtain on a world that was never supposed to be exposed. A place where fame created a shield, money bought silence, and people were allegedly treated as property, behind all the lights and luxury. So where does that leave us? What happens when one of the most powerful figures in music is accused of operating a system darker than anyone ever imagined? We're about to find out. But if this trial has proven anything, it's that the walls around these untouchable icons aren't as thick as they thought. And if Combs can fall this far, who's next?